part 1 of 10 fascinating facts about love, sex, and lust, brought to you by our sponsor, Condom Jungle. You can shop at condomjungle.com. Condom Jungle, hump responsibly. So we've got some awesome things. We're going to cover the first 5 of these. This is a list coming from Alternet, and man, they cover the entire range of love all the way to sex, and there's some very interesting studies going on that I hadn't known about. Number 10, you can break your penis. This is interesting. I think that it shocks a lot of people because we understand that despite the fact that we call it a boner, it does not have an actual bone in it, but you can actually break it. Penile fracture, it's called, is a severe form of bending injury to the erect penis that occurs when a membrane called the tunica albuginea tears. And so basically, despite the fact that there's no bone, this membrane can break. And so I think that you understand at this point that when you become aroused, blood flows to that part of your body, and it's relatively contained by this membrane. But if that breaks, then the blood is not contained, and it can go to other parts of the penis, causing swelling and bruising. Now, the swelling part may sound good to a guy, but this is bad swelling, and you don't want it. Were you aware of the fact that penises can break?
No, I thought it was like a myth, so this has shocked me a little bit, especially because there are no bones in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be careful about how you engage in sexual activity. So protect yourself, not just in terms of wearing condoms that you buy at Condom Jungle, but also in terms of the vigor of your activity. And so one example that they gave here was that a guy tried to do a sort of running jump start to sex, and he broke his penis. So be careful.
Ouch.
Exactly. Number 9, this involves strippers, and apparently the point that she's at in her cycle can have a dramatic impact on the tips that she gets. And so they give the examples. This is research done at the University of New Mexico. They found that women strippers who were ovulating made on average $70 per hour in tips, which, by the way, that's a crazy amount of money. I gotta get into the stripping game. Those who were menstruating made $35, and those who were between the two made $50. And so we're talking about doubling between menstruating and ovulating, $35 to $70. And so to any strippers watching this, you should be aware of that. What do you think?
I think it makes sense. Maybe you can plan your schedule around that and make sure you're working those days if you're a stripper. But it doesn't surprise me too much, given that pheromones can affect our behavior, and our hormones do attract the opposite sex depending on where we are in our cycle and our genetic component. So
yeah, and the reason that they think might be causing this is that guys are picking up on exactly those sorts of I guess pheromones and stuff like that, and they might be more predisposed to give a woman money if they think they can have a child with her, I guess, which seems weird, because you think you go to the strip club just to see some boobs or something.
But I think
no, apparently they're thinking about childbearing.
I think it goes back to the very primal instincts, right, of having sex and procreating.
Exactly, and handing over money, very primal. Okay, number 8. If you've watched the documentary The Science of Sex Appeal, which is awesome, you might know this already, but women can smell genetic incompatibility and compatibility. And so the way this works is the pheromones you're talking about, we can smell them, even though we don't know we smell them. And those pheromones and the smell can actually clue you into your genetic similarity to another person. And the way it works in terms of attraction is you want to be genetically dissimilar from the other person, because then when you have children with them, those children will have the best chance of fighting off disease and stuff like that. And so scientists have done studies where they had women smell shirts that men have sweated into, and they found that they like the smell of ones that are genetically compatible, i.e. dissimilar.
I think they've also done similar studies with shirts as well, and having men wear them, where they find that the taller men typically have an advantage as well, or the better looking men have an advantage. So I think there's also, one thing is genetic compatibility, but the other thing too is, just some people are more genetically compatible based on their traits than others.
Man, that doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't,
tall
right?
guys smell better too. Man, short guys can't get a break. But yeah, that's interesting. And another related thing to this, apparently because obviously your father or your brothers are going to be genetically similar to you, they found that when they didn't even know that they were smelling their siblings' clothing, they were not attracted to it. And so that's a good thing, I think, overall. So number 7, we just talked about your ability to sort of smell the genetic similarity or dissimilarity. Apparently, birth control can mess with that. And I found that birth control, I've read multiple studies, both about the smelling the pheromones, but also in terms of, assessing whether or not you're interested in the person. It messes with that. It makes you more likely to want to hook up with guys you would not have been attracted to before.
Yeah, and I think the theory behind it is that when you are on birth control, your body essentially thinks you're pregnant. So when you are pregnant, there are studies that show that you want to be with close relatives, right? When you're not pregnant, you're attracted to those that are dissimilar.
Be with close relatives?
Yeah, yeah. So when you're pregnant, no, as in physical proximity.
Wow.
St. Kansas. No,
weird science.
Just in physical proximity because you feel safe, right? And you don't want to be with people that are dissimilar and genetically compatible, right, when you're pregnant. But when you aren't pregnant and you are not on the pill, then you're attracted to these people that are dissimilar, right? Yes. So the theory goes that, you know, oftentimes when you start taking the pill, for example, and you've been with a partner, you might start feeling a little less attracted to him or her.
Oh. I knew there was a reason.
Weird.
Very great information there. I just want to reiterate: don't sleep with your siblings, just in case you came out of that not being sure. And also, I'm just going to throw this in here. I read a study that said that when women are ovulating, men's ability to determine how attractive they are, like when women are not ovulating, they rate them as less attractive when they're ovulating. They think they're more attractive, even though they look very similar. So yeah, you might think you have more control over who you're attracted to than you actually do. And so the final one for this part 1, fat men last longer in bed. I would not have expected this at all.
Me either. That surprised me.
Yeah, and so they found that men who are more overweight, there are some negatives to that, including increased chance of erectile dysfunction. But they found that in general, and they don't define what BMI they're going with, the fatter men lasted on average 7.3 minutes in bed, while slimmer men lasted 1.8 minutes. Not 1.8 minutes less, 1.8 minutes. Total, which for me, that's my goal to eventually get to. But for these guys, 1.8 minutes, and yeah, so about 1/3 as long for the slimmer guys. Is it worth it? Are you going to seek out fat men from now on?
The thing is, like, in general, fat men are considered less attractive. So if you put on a ton of weight, you might not get as many opportunities to have sex and show off your 7.4 minutes, right? So
7.8 something.
Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah, so very, very weird result here. It's probably, I'm going to just say, this is one study in the Journal of Impotence Research. I think that probably they should run this again, maybe, because I don't think that there should be that much difference. But they say the reason for it is that fat men, or men with excess fat, have more of the female sex hormone estradiol. And that makes it harder to achieve orgasm, which actually makes me feel bad for the fat men. They last longer in bed, but it's because they don't feel as good.
No, do they not feel as good though? I feel like once they reach orgasm, they're probably feeling just as great.
Yeah, I'm sure they feel good at that point. And they probably feel confident because they lasted as long as they did. And so anyway, we're going to continue this in a couple weeks down the line. But yeah, Alternate put together these great lists of interesting sexual research. Like we understand that there are hundreds and hundreds of graduate students working in every field, but man, they find some weird things to research.
For sure.
Anyway, hope you enjoyed those sex facts brought to you by our sponsor, Condom Jungle. You can head to condomjungle.com. They have a huge assortment of different condoms, so no more excuses about not being able to find one that fits you, and look back a previous video about how to find the right fitting condom. They deliver worldwide very quickly, and one of the coolest things about this website is it's discreet shipping, and so it doesn't say anything about condoms on the outside. So you can get it shipped to a dorm room, you can get it shipped to home, and your parents don't need to be any the wiser.